subconsciously, what ends up happening is like, sir, like, I'm gonna watch you make mistakes. Yeah, and you can see naturally how dangerous that is already.
Yes.
So right from the pre-takeoff phase of that flight, the weather was not good enough. There's some aircraft from other airlines had canceling their clearance over the radio. So already the first officer should have been like, hey, I don't think we should go. And then when they took off, the captain got a bit spatially disoriented. In the dark of night, remember we use instruments as reference. You're not looking outside like this. You're using your instruments as reference. And it's very easy to get disoriented. And what you're supposed to do is trust your instruments. Even if your body is feeling like it's telling you you're like this, but your instruments are telling you like this, instruments are always correct. So captain got disoriented. The first officer kind of hesitated to call it out. And I say this all due respect to the families lost and even of the captain and the first officer.
Wadau mazee, leo tuko na pilot kwa show, and the good news is he's willing and he's not shy to tell it like it is. Eric Mutiso, ladies and gentlemen.
To demystify it a bit, our typical flight is very routine for us. The day we get the non-normal, that's the day now you earn your money. But a typical flight, me going to the airport, if I'm flying to Mombasa tomorrow, I'm not at home thinking, kesho Mombasa, wow. No, it's just like any other job going to the office.
Eric Mutiso is a podcaster, one of the leading podcasts in the country, inaitwa EOTWE, every other time with Eric, but he's also an active pilot. So hapo kwa piloting, leo lazima tujue what it takes to be a pilot, cost-wise, and is it even worth it? That you can get an aircraft for as low as 90K. Sasa mifu, what goes in mind, shida ni parking too. So I buy it for 90K and then I do it as a project.
Not 90,000 shillings.
I think they were for the auction.
No. So what? Oh, yes. So what happened? Let me just explain that auction.
And beyond aviation, Eric has a concept and relationship with the idea of bouncing back.
It took me long to finish flying school. Flying school, if you have all the resources, 2.5, maximum 3 years. Took me almost double that because of the tumultuous relationship with alcohol.
Yes.
By many estimations, I should have given up, you know.
Yes.
There are probably some people who can't believe I am where I am right now.
I'm your host, Dr. Kingori, and here's another reason to stay subscribed to our channel. Kama uja subscribe, this right here is another reason to hit subscribe and turn on the notifications bell. Na kama umependa set yetu, our location, set nini, this is happening at Wojo Africa. Now Wojo is a premium co-working space located in Upper Hill, Nairobi, Makiwa Hotel, yenye ilikuwa Crown Plaza kitambo. If you're familiar na your concept ya co-working space, like an office that has been set up for you, unakuja unapigwa rate fiti, and everything you need in the office ama in an office setting has been done for you. You need to get in touch with the team at Wojo Africa. The contact details tumewekea hapa kwa screen. You know, you hook me na a statement, yeah, you are an active pilot. And you have no idea what a pilot means for us growing up, like Sisi. It falls kwa category a big five. Ati, pilot, doctor, engineer. I don't remember the other two, but there's somewhere there. Yes, lawyer. But pilot like really ranks there, okay? And for us, and I believe for the parents of our generation, they really advocated for those careers na pilot kiwa kwanza because of like we imagine the money. Now that we uko ndani, insider information, is the money what we used to think it is?
Well, everything is relative. First of all, thanks for inviting me to your wonderful show, man. It's a pleasure. I love your setup, man. It's beautiful. Very nice team. So thanks for inviting me, man. The money, it's all relative. Of course, it's a high-stakes job. High stakes in that in aviation, we look at life as sacred. So if I'm in charge of a certain number of lives, one, it's only just that you pay me commensurately, especially because I'm doing something that's very, it's a very, what's the word? Specific kind of role, right? Secondly, apart from life is equipment. Planes are expensive. So you can't pay someone little to operate a $40 million machine. It has to be kind of commensurate. So relatively, the remuneration is good. We're always complaining. We always want more. Pilots, that's why there's unions. Of course, we always want more. We always compare ourselves globally. Of course, Middle East, you hear them getting 6-month bonuses. So us guys are like, even us, we want that kind of money. Lest we go also. So to kind of curb poaching, well, we're just trying to ask for more, but it's a just kind of salary, I'll say.
Najua I will struggle with you when I ask about locally. Hebu niambie ya Middle East. Like how much does a pilot earn in the Middle East? Ndio nijue why you are complaining.
Wow. Okay, so I'll start in the cockpit. There's two pilots usually, right? There's a captain and there's a first officer.
Yes.
I'm a first officer right now, so we do the same job. Captain just is the ultimate authority. He's the boss for the day. So if it's a 4-sector day, we split it in two. I'll fly 2, he flies 2. But whatever
4-sector day.
Yeah.
You call it a 4-sector day.
Yeah. So let's say I'm flying to Mombasa, that's 1 sector. Back to Nairobi, that's another. Then maybe to Kisumu, that's another one. Then back to, so those are 4 sectors.
In a day, you can do that in a day.
Yeah. Sometimes we do 6. Yeah.
In one day.
Yes.
Carry on.
So I just wanted to put the distinction between the two. So that also from the salary point of view, you understand that the captain is paid more because on top of the swagger of being the boss and captain, also is culpability. Should anything go wrong, it's first you. We want to investigate the captain first, right? The same way in this setup, you're the captain. Yeah. If something was to go wrong, it's Dr. Kingori you want first. What was happening? So
yes.
I'll split it into two. So the first officers in Middle East are paid, you want specific figures?
Yes, let's do specific figures.
A net of maybe like 1.4 million, tax-free, of course.
That is more than the Kenyan president earns, like on paper.
You're going to put me under pressure here.
No, on paper, on paper.
Yes,
we are talking about Middle East.
Yes. Yeah, so, and then the difference with Middle East, what they offer is, it's tax-free, of course. You have housing, you're given a house, or a housing allowance should you choose. So you can choose a villa, or if you're a guy of money, Chicago, maybe you can go live in a 1-bedroom, but now you
Okay.
And then they pay school fees for up to 4 beneficiaries. And of course, full medical cover. If you're talking about the bigger airlines like Emirates, you're picked and dropped. So you're never driving yourself. You're picked and dropped from the airport. And when you land, you're picked and dropped separate. It's not that I've been flying with Kingori for 8 hours, and then now we're going in the same car to our residence. Even if you're my next door neighbor, we picked shuttle separately. So the benefits in the Middle East are just second to none. America's recently caught up. So in the post-COVID era, America realized for them to retain talent, they had to step up their game to compete with the Middle East. Because they were losing a lot of talent to the Middle East. Guys are like, let me go fly. I can fly the same aircraft. Let me go for my services there for more money. So America recently really stepped up their game. So a lot of guys have gone back to America. They're earning really good money as well right now. Yeah. So in the African context, we're really trying, the national carrier just recently signed something that would be called a decent CBA. Some would argue otherwise. Like I said, we tend to complain a lot as crew. So, and of course, when you look at economies of scales of airline, you cannot expect entirely us to match up with Middle East. Yeah. Okay. So to sum it up, we're paid. I'd say it's decent.
It's decent.
Yes.
And it's one of my favorite social psychologists, anaitwa Jonathan Haidt, I believe. Anaitwa Jonathan Haidt. But due to interacting with so much information, I believe ni alisema hivi, that most people would rather work in a job where they are earning $90,000, right? When everyone is earning $70,000, than have a job where they're earning $150,000, right? When everyone else is earning $200,000. You understand?
Yes, a philosophy of so having more than the rest of society.
Yes. Is it really economies of scale, ama it is comparison?
I think what the disgruntledness comes with the fact that we're doing the same job.
Exactly the same job.
Yeah, so a KQ pilot, for example, I'll use them as a litmus, right?
Yes.
They're flying Boeings and like the 787 or a 737 Boeing, which are the same fleet that are operated by these big carriers, both in America, Europe, Middle East. and they're as qualified. Some are as good or even better because they offer some of the best training. So I'm literally qualified to go and earn that money. So justify why I should stay. That's how crew look at it, right? Yes. So philosophically, it's east or west.
Home is the best.
Home is best. Maybe my family, my kids are already in school, they've settled, but there's always that push and pull. So you'll have some guys who've gone, who appear to be living la vida loca, but on that side they're like, hey, but those guys are in Kenya. They look like they're enjoying being at home.
Yeah.
So the grass is greener syndrome, I think, is not just a preserve of aviation. So it's a delicate thing. Like, should I go? Should I stay? Should I succumb to the peer pressure of going because guys are going? That also is a very big trend in aviation.
Yes.
Let's go to Dubai. Meanwhile, Dr. Kingori has his own agenda, your own goals. May I have my own goals. So why am I making a decision based on you? Or why are you making a decision based off me?
Okay.
So me, in my young 34 years of age, I've realized such decisions are very Eric specific. If I feel it behooves me to go to Middle East and I meet the requirements and the time is right, then I will go. But I'll not go because people are going, right? And that's the thing I think people need to zero it down to. Yeah, because there's also benefit to being in Kenya. I mean, it's home.
Okay. Now, you also, sasa tena mixed me up now. You're flying a $40 million aircraft, so your salary should also be commensurate.
Yes. Yes.
So wouldn't it be interesting to negotiate your salary ukiwa huko juu? Because that's where the $40 million really makes sense.
I have this aircraft. If you want me to land it, kindly.
Hii month, munaonaje?
Oh, that's a very interesting. You're a funny guy. So, and me, when I talk about 40 million, I'm talking about like what I fly, which is 82-seater turboprop aircraft. So the Boeings which are bigger, which are like 200-seater, are upwards of $100 million plus. So I'll just use the category I fly. That's why people unionize, so that we can measure the industry standards. What are those guys getting over there?
Okay.
So within you'll find, for example, I fly for an airline, like a subsidiary of the major airline, right? So the aircraft we operate is also operated by other airlines in Kenya that do perhaps humanitarian work.
Yes.
So it's always compared to what are those guys, what are my colleagues on that side getting? And so you'll find maybe they have a higher salary, but they're outstationed. So a guy is based in Bangui for 42 days at a time, or Juba or Somalia. So on top of his salary, he's getting a per diem, but he's not home with his family.
Yes.
So it's never ideal. There's no time you just say, me, my salary, I'm just so happy. I'm getting everything I want. So it's a delicate balance. So some guys end up going outstation, but now your family life suffers. Things like divorce.
So you have to choose.
You have to choose wisely.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Okay. Now, there's a difference between carrying 85 passengers and carrying 200 passengers. Ama, by the way, save for standards, you can just walk into a plane and shine in a 200-seater plane now that you know the principles of flying.
So that's a very good question. So
Thank you.
Once you finish flight school, flight training, let's say the world was ending right now. Let's say Anarchy, that movie 2012. A licensed pilot can enter an aircraft and somewhat figure it out. No rules. Let's say it's like, hey, I need to get Dr. Kingori and his team here. We need to go across the border. I can freestyle my way in an aircraft I've never flown based off the training that I had. But now in a more sane setting, what happens is, for aviation, you get something called a rating. So if I trained on a Boeing 737, I've finished flight school, I'm employed by an airline. They operate maybe the Embraer, the 737, and a 787. What usually happens is they start you with the smallest aircraft in the fleet, right? So they train you, you do something called simulator training. It's called rating, an initial rating. Rating is like a stamp that on your license that you can fly this aircraft. Think of, if cars had ratings, you can drive a Toyota, you can drive a Nissan. We've not The NTSA have not said that you can drive a Nissan, so you are restricted to this. So in aviation, what happens is you'll do 2 weeks of class, 2 weeks in the simulator. You come back, you do something called line training, which is now you're being trained on different routes on that specific aircraft, after which you get an endorsement, and then you fly that aircraft. So what airlines like to do is they start you off on the smallest, and as you grow, you get on the bigger aircraft.
Yes.
So you enter as a first officer, co-pilot, on the smallest aircraft. You climb as a first officer from an Embraer, let's say, to a 737, to a Dreamliner. Then you come back down as a captain on the Embraer, then climb again.
Oh.
So that's how it usually works for the airlines, yeah.
Okay. So now, what does it look like between green from high school to taking the first flight? How much training is there? And sasa usituambia Middle East, what are the costs in Kenya?
Typically right now, the last figure I had was around 6-point-something million.
6-point-something million.
From start to finish, yeah.
Okay, and how many months before you recoup your money?
So right now it's a great time. I tell people, if you have passion and you have money, there's no better time than ever in history to be a pilot than now, because the demand for pilots is at an all-time high. Like the airlines are scrambling for talent because the talent, there's not enough pilots to go around, right? So from start to finish, you enter, once you can enroll straight from high school. You don't have to do a degree. I would advise people, if you have the means and the time and the ability, also get a degree, just for your own personal, it's just a nice fallback to have. Also, because aviation is pegged on your medical fitness, it's also good to have a fallback plan. Don't just be, anything can happen. You know, you might have a small incident, you might fall sick and your medical license could be taken from you. And once you lose your medical, you can't fly. So I'll always advise young people who want to enter aviation, if you can have a fallback, also pursue that. So from high school, you enroll, and the first license you try get is it's called a private pilot license. A private pilot license, as all aviation courses go, there's a theory side. So you do 8 subjects of theory in tandem with flight lessons. Now, the flight lessons are 40 hours. You need to accumulate 40 hours. Within those 40 hours, there's different kinds of training from that first flight you speak of, which is called a famil. A famil flight is just, does King Ori have, you have the passion, you come with psych, do you have what it takes to fly? So you pay the school for the famil, you're taken up with an instructor, and he confirms that you have what it takes. Remember, these are light aircraft. It's a 4-seater aircraft. So you're taking maneuvers, steep downs, stalls. Sometimes they keep it light depending on how they look at how they gauge you, because there are guys who like, they like the craziness. I liked the craziness. Some people, you need to take them slower, you know. But they're just trying to see, do you have what it takes? Can you stomach the actual flying of it? And once you ascertain that you can, then now you can pay the full amount for at least a PPL. And they roster you now for flying lessons and class. The class, the theory side of things, would you like to know the subjects perhaps?
Yeah, please.
So there's meteorology, obviously. That's of course because you need to understand you're operating the air. There's weather, so you need to understand weather and weather systems.
Oh, not horoscopes.
Not horoscopes. Of course, there's air law, the rules of the air. There's operational procedures. That's the implementation of the law. There's navigation. How do I know where I'm going? How do I interpret a map? How do I understand the different models of the Earth in terms of the globe and how they've created maps around it? There's principles of flight. How does this thing get in the air? What laws are at play? How am I getting lift, thrust, weight? How does this thing get in the air? Because flying is it's a strange thing how we define gravity.
Yes.
Aircraft general knowledge, that's things like components of an aircraft, flight planning. There's a lot that goes. By the time Dr. Kingori boards an aircraft to go somewhere, there's been a delicate dance. By the time you're sitting in that aircraft, see the same way there's a production here? There's a whole paper trail of flight plans, weather reports, the ticketing side of things, the fueling side, mass and balance. So there's flight planning as a subject because it's a delicate dance, yeah. I think I've touched on most of the subjects.
You have. And now, all these delicate dance, you say you can fly, you call it 6?
6 sectors.
6 sectors.
Yes.
You can go to Mombasa, go to Kisumu, go to Mombasa. And going to Mombasa means going to Mombasa and coming back.
So one sector is just the one trip. From Nairobi to Mombasa, that's one sector. Mombasa back to Nairobi, that's second sector. Then if I go again to Mombasa, that's third sector. If I come back, that's fourth sector.
So you can be in almost technically different counties in the same day, multiple times.
Yeah, that's typical, yeah.
And the planning for each flight is the same. Ama, if you go to Mombasa, you remember how you came, you can come back, you cut off some things.
So there's the specific routes we use. Operationally, that's a good question. Operationally, if I'm doing a double Mombasa, not much will change. What's changing is perhaps the meteorological conditions, and we'll adjust accordingly. Should I fly at 23,000 instead of 25 because the weather is better? The runway may change. Small nuances around it may change, but for the most part, it's pretty much routine. Right? It's pretty routine. In fact, in flying, to demystify it a bit, our typical flight is very routine for us. The day we get the non-normal, that's the day now you earn your money. But a typical flight, me going to the airport, if I'm flying to Mombasa tomorrow, I'm not at home thinking, Kesho Mombasa, wow. No, it's just like any other job going to the office.
What is non-normal?
Non-normal is now what we train for. Engine failure, engine fire, problem with things like pressurization. Because when an aircraft is pressurized, yeah, for you to be able to breathe at 25,000 feet, think of walking up Ngong Hills. They you start hemming as you're going up there. Now, 25,000 feet, the pressure of the air is really thin, so you cannot breathe normally. So the aircraft is pressurized, and that's a whole system. So if that system fails, we have to do an emergency descent to get to a place where it can sustain human life. Because if you don't, and you stay up there, you will actually die. Yeah. It happened to an aircraft called there was an air crash investigation on a flight called Helios, where they didn't turn it on, and they flew, and it's a very peaceful death. It's a very peaceful transition because you get hypoxic. Hypoxia is just a starvation of oxygen to the brain, and there's no drama. It's like you're just getting irate before you know it, you've passed out. So the aircraft flew all the way to destination, and it's not doing the approach. It's on autopilot at some point, so it's not doing the approach. So they scramble jets to go and see you. They're seeing everyone fly. The guys are hunched over. Eventually it ran out of fuel and crashed. So non-normal is very rare. That's why it remains the safest form of transport. But it's all we train for. We're always prepared for the unforeseen. That's what the whole essence around being a pilot is. Flying from here to Mombasa routine is fairly easy once you're trained. Mm-hmm. But what you're trained for mainly is in case something goes wrong with this aircraft or the operation, I need to be equipped to handle it so that I can preserve human life, mainly. And then our equipment, things like make sure the aircraft is sound.
Oh, so you train for bad luck?
Yes.
For the most part?
Yes. From day one, actually. In flight school, apart from that familiar flight, from the first day, you start being trained how to install an aircraft. In case the aircraft stalls, how do I recover from a stall?
What's a stall? A
stall is when an aircraft, when you exceed what's called the critical angle of attack. So if you perhaps nose the aircraft too much up, remember it's not a rocket, and at some point there's not enough airflow over the wings to generate lift. So the aircraft becomes now a
kite.
You're just in the air, right?
It's not moving.
Yes, you're no longer now generating any lift. You're not flying anymore. So there's a procedure to install the wings. You nose down, gently pitch down, get back airflow over the wings, and then recover. So those are some of the things you're taught from like day one, so it becomes muscle memory. If your aircraft stalls, nose down the aircraft. Get back airflow over the wings, pitch up, and continue flying normally.
And these things happen now?
Yeah, stalls can happen, yeah.
Have you ever experienced the non-normal yourself?
Yes, I have. I've had, I don't want to say the first one, but I've had one where we had a landing gear that refused to, this was usually when landing gear refuses to go down, that's more dramatic. Ours refused to go up. So instead of proceeding to the destination, we followed there's a whole procedure to follow. just to confirm that it's indeed down and locked, and then we just landed back where we took off from. We didn't proceed to destination. Yeah.
Oh, after you fix it, you don't proceed to destination?
So what happened is, usually when you take off, I don't know if you've ever paid attention to the landing, it goes up. The wheels go up.
Yes.
So in our case, they didn't go up.
Okay.
So if you leave them down and try fly to destination, you'll burn so much fuel. There's so much drag on the aircraft. So what we did is we just landed. We proceeded to, we followed the requisite procedure and then landed back where we were taken off from. Yeah.
Who gets crucified for this?
No one. Remember, it's a machine, where I work is one of the most professional environments. So you're hoping that everything has been done above board. The maintenance is above board. The crew is well trained, but it's still a machine. A machine is subject to error. So that something like that, you cannot blame it on the human. Of course, sometimes an investigation will be done just to see that things were followed properly. But it's a machine that's at any time something can happen.
Okay. So now you say it is in the non-normal where you earn your money.
Yes.
Does it mean that when you fly in the non-normal, there is a token of appreciation? For
I hope my boss is watching this.
He's definitely watching.
Yeah, so that we can get, no. It's basically why we earn our salary. Yeah, the being prepared for that hopeful an eventuality and being prepared for it. That's what pilots literally are there for. Like I'm saying, the routine flight from here to anywhere is pretty normal. That one haina maneno mob. Yeah.
Okay. Tutarudi hapo kwa do, but when you explain to us the concept of first officer and captain, Malcolm Gladwell writes of a very interesting concept inaitwa the ethnic theory of plane crashes. Like I think it's the South Korean Airlines had a very long history of plane crashes. Like ndege zao tu zinaanguka, and then they investigated wakapata there's a concept called PDI, Power Distance Index, ile ya how people relate to authority.
Wow.
Like watu wenye like unaona kama Kenya, mheshimiwa nini.
This is why your show is the best. Like I mean, that's top-notch research. So it's called Cockpit Gradient.
Yes.
Cockpit Gradient is a concept where, so like what the territory you talk about, Korea.
Yes.
It's age is a very serious thing, you know.
Yes.
Reverence towards age, sensei, almost like.
Yes.
So if a mzee says something,
yes,
you kind of listen to the mzee because he's lived longer. Yeah?
Yes.
Now, in the context of aviation, a two-man crew, the captain and the first officer, it's in the best interest of the captain, for me as a first officer, to point out something he's done wrong or something that's going wrong, even if he or she thinks they're right, and vice versa, because it's a two-crew operation. That's the whole point of multi-crew. We're there to back each other up. We understand that human is to error, so we've put a fail-safe of 2 humans. Yeah, better 2 than 1.
Yes.
And we also understood that machine is to error, and we're both looking out for potential errors. So this issue of cockpit gradient there's a long history of crashes that happened because our first officer didn't feel confident enough to point it out.
Yes.
So much so that it was incorporated in one of the subjects I didn't mention. It's called human factors. Yeah, it's a whole subject on its own.
Yes.
So that you're sensitized from day one, even through the questions they ask you in your exams. What would you do if the captain says this, but you see this?
Yes.
Just to inculcate that thing for you, point it out. Now, over time, in the 70s, they introduced something called CRM, Crew Resource Management. Now, CRM training is to weed out an old culture where captain alikuwa mwenye kusema, I'm the captain. You all bow to my whims. I'm the boss. And you see, the moment you have that kind of attitude in a cockpit or in a flight setup, you're just bringing the safety down because everyone is scared. Remember, not only the first officer, a cabin crew can point out something. I saw something on the engine that yeah. But if I'm scared of you, and I'm scared you might reprimand me, maybe that thing is part of the engine, and if I point it out, you'll be like, don't even know your aircraft,
Yes.
So CRM was introduced to kind of show crew the importance of synergy, of having synergy, right? And over time, it has reduced accidents significantly. I may be crucified for talking about this, but rest in peace to all these people. There's a famous KQ aircraft that had an incident in Douala.
Yes.
And upon investigation, it was found that there was a CRM issue. And the CRM issue that's tied to the gradient in that cockpit. So there was a very experienced captain with a relatively inexperienced, qualified, but relatively inexperienced. And it was also found that the captain was a bit autocratic. Autocratic is, was dume.
Yes.
And it was said that on the flight to Douala, he had berated this guy the whole way. Berating is yani, oh, Jui, Akoni, you don't know this. So of course that it can mess up with the first officer's belief in his abilities. And there's also a psychological thing that happens where subconsciously what ends up happening is like, I'm going to watch you make mistakes. Yeah. And you can see naturally how dangerous that is already.
Yes.
So right from the pre-takeoff phase of that flight, the weather was not good enough. There's some aircrafts from other airlines had canceling their clearance over the radio. So already the first officer should have been like, hey, I don't think we should go. And then when they took off, the captain got a bit spatially disoriented. In the dark of night, remember we use instruments as reference. You're not looking outside like this. You're using your instruments as reference. And it's very easy to get disoriented. And what you're supposed to do is trust your instruments. Even if your body is feeling like it's telling you you're like this, but your instruments are telling you you're like this, instruments are always correct. So captain got disoriented. The first officer kind of hesitated to call it out. And I say this all due respect to the families lost and even of the captain and the first officer, just pointing out an incident. So that cockpit gradient has been better managed since, even in that airline. And nowadays, the common trend is we only had to do our roles. I respect you as the captain, but I will feel free to point out something you might be doing wrong, and vice versa. And there's not supposed to be any ego attached. Yeah, it's very easy. All of us make small mistakes. Yeah, when someone points it out, it's not it's supposed something you take positively.
Yes.
Because ultimately, what we're trying to preserve is human life.
Okay,
yeah, that's basically
it. Wow, that's interesting. And I think that concept of like how much psychological elements can play along in terms of a disaster was very deep for me.
Yes.
Like just not pointing out because of the programming that happens before, many lives.
Yes.
The cost is measured in lives, actually. The mistakes kama hizo. And isn't it such a heavy responsibility? As much as you say flying from point A to point B is very easy. For the period that you're on air, someone told me they can't drive a bus because of the responsibility of so many lives, right?
So when I joined where I work now, before that I used to fly humanitarian. I used to fly in South Sudan. I used to fly the Land Rover of flying. It's called a Cessna Caravan. So we were flying 14-seater. It was a 14-seater. So 14-seater, the cockpit, I can see my guys I'm carrying, So when I moved into a bigger structure, bigger airline, at first it dawns on you. When you start your training, it dawns on you like, this one is big. I'm carrying guys.
Yes.
Sometimes you hear people boarding and you see how many guys are boarding and you're like, these are all individual people with individual stories and you're just joining the dots for them.
Yes.
Someone's going for a wedding. Someone's going for a funeral. Someone's going for business. All of these people have loved ones. All of these people have their own intricate lives.
Yes.
And they are depending on me to make sure that I tie all their stories together. So that's the romantic almost side of it's such a noble thing that I'm doing, And
yes.
On the flip side of that is like, these are human lives. These are 82 guys. But now the more you fly in that environment, you become a bit desensitized to that element. You're aware, but not as intricately as the first time. Right now, if I was to get hired somewhere, perhaps where I'm flying a A380, where I have 400 souls on board, it'll take a while for that 400 souls, 400 guys.
Yes.
It'll take a while for that to sink in, but over time also, it becomes normal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And what does have you ever thought of the business side of aviation? Like, yes, beyond me making money as a pilot, like what does the business side look like? Like, let's say, for example, instead of going in the matatu business, is there a way in for me to think of like owning an aircraft? What does that business look like from an investor's perspective?
I'll answer it in two ways. The first part is, so in the morning, whenever we do the first flight of the day, we must conduct a document check just to confirm all the documents that are required are on board the aircraft, including some of the lease agreements. So once in a while, you look at these things, you're like, the guy is making the real money, bana. This driver, bana.
Yes.
I'm a glorified driver, some would say, although some of my colleagues will get so offended. But it's okay. You cannot become wealthy from employment. That's a reality. People will take that and feel bad about it. Employment offers great stability, yes, but there's an obvious ceiling within it. I'm not going to become Elon Musk of becoming a pilot, of being a pilot.
But that's relative. Because let's assume you're employed as a pilot and you're making Middle East money. There's a person who runs a business who doesn't even get half of that in profit.
Okay, fair enough. Again, yes. everything is relative.
Yes.
But there's still a ceiling. Even if I'm given the highest possible pilot salary, it will not be generational.
Generational, plus it cannot give you access to investing in that.
Yes. So the real money is the ownership of so sometimes I think I'm like, hey, this company I'm working for, I'm making crazy money. Who owns it? Who's behind it? Who are the shareholders? The guys puppeteering at the top, that's where the real money is. Now, the biggest barrier of entry to aviation, of course, is capital. Very capital-intensive industry. At whatever level, even if you want to buy a 4-seater for a flight school or an A380 to start an airline, unless you're the Saudi royals who are starting Riyadh Air and they're coming in swinging, like us guys are going to order. In fact, it's Boeing delaying us. If Boeing could remove 200 aircraft today, we are willing to pay cash.
Whoa.
Yeah, because they have, unlimited coffers. So the biggest barrier is, of course, capital. And everything in aviation costs, from the personnel, from the fees involved, permits to operate, maintenance costs, paying personnel like pilots, the different subscriptions we have for like navigation tools we use. It's very capital intensive, right? So that would be the biggest barrier of entry. Yeah, and you need some very serious backing to start an airline. Yeah, but however, those who've dared and have done it successfully, I want you to think not just airline in terms of the bigger ones, the KQs or think of charter companies, like where you start off with a 14-seater aircraft that does Masai Mara. So there are guys who dared to dream and they started off, and right now they are very deep pockets, yeah? But a lot of grit. So you find you employ yourself, you've leased this aircraft, but you're flying it, you're part of the operation, and then slowly you scale. And some of the most successful safari businesses out of Kenya are such guys. So they just there, they're like, I cannot just be employed from start to finish.
Yes.
What I'm longing for is a pension. No, there's more. I can make more by owning the operation, right?
Yeah, and I think this comes from when I asked you, like for a moment, I saw this conversation, I think on Twitter, one of my favorite platforms, sana. I spend a lot of time there. Unasema when
you're big time there also.
Eddie?
You're big time there also. It's the hardest to grow.
Kuna kuanga big time huko. There's a culture I look at, I think, okay, it's sadistic to enjoy that. Kuna kitu they do on X inaitwa fattening the bull before slaughtering.
Like, they build you up to destroy you.
Especially, Twitter gives you pace. Like, kuna mbio ukikuja nayo, like, you say it's difficult to grow.
Oh yes, hardest platform.
If you defy the pace of growth on Twitter, you're being fattened for me. So now a conversation starts, I think, somewhere that kumbe it's not that expensive to own an aircraft. Ati Upper Wilson Zico. In fact, you explained the concept, and I wish you can explain it for our audience. Ati you can get an aircraft for as low as 90K. Sasa me, what goes in mind, shida ni parking too. So I buy it for 90K and then I do it as a project.
Not 90,000 shillings.
I think there were for the auction.
No. So what? Oh yes. So what happened? Let me just explain that auction. So what happened was there was a lot of aircrafts at Wilson that had been decommissioned. Decommission means it doesn't matter what kind of overhaul, no maintenance action can be done for this aircraft to be certified to fly again. Pretty much in its scrap. But and they were taking a lot of space, parking space, right? So they found a creative way. Instead of just removing them and putting them in a junkyard, why don't we make some money off this? So they sold them off to different interests. I think there's a guy somewhere in
Kitengela.
Yes,
Mombasa Road.
Yes. He has a restaurant with a prop of an aircraft.
Yes.
Some went to schools. I saw Kekivan the other day donated an old aircraft to Mangu. Very useful for the kids in Mangu to learn about the aircraft, but useless to be taking space at Jomo. Get?
Yeah.
So they found a way to mutually benefit. But those are not for flying.
Not for flying, in that you, with the training you have, you can't tinker with it at night, uipandishe juu kidogo tu just for.
Now you see we have a regulator, Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. I cannot just, where our aviation has reached in territories like the states, guys even have their own maintenance programs in their car, a ban on their land somewhere, and they maintain their own aircraft, they fly their own aircrafts.
Yes.
Yeah. We're not yet there. We're growing, we're still of course behind, but we're growing steadily. So I cannot just buy that thing, fix it and fly it myself. It needs certain certifications to fly. You need a certificate of airworthiness, which is given to you by the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority.
Yeah, I know hizo procedures zote.
To fly.
Usiku tu, ini ndege. Kwani how did it land there? I can't, nigonge, as in, I want to go to Kisumu at night. And I know where the radar starts. Can I flow below the radar? Hii usiku tu watu wanasikia mende iko hapa juu.
So the question would be, because where you're landing, there's a air traffic control. I'll use Kisumu as an example. Someone will see you.
You've confirmed that they can fly. That's what I wanted.
Yes.
Yeah, I can test it at night. Like, nezaruka nayo jam. As in, it can move from point A to point B, just that.
Off camera, doctor was telling me how he's a movie guy. I'm also a movie guy. So in like a 2012, remember 2012, the movie? End world scenario. You have the expertise.
Yes.
You can tinker in this aircraft, by all means.
It will fly.
Vuka border. Yeah.
Nice.
But not legally. I think
Yes, I just needed to confirm. Yes, imkebe yangu, even if I bought it, like at Wilson, by the it's a doomsday strategy. Like kakiwa kabaya inaweza toka.
But these are for the smaller ones. Like the ones that I was given to Mangu, for a Boeing of that kind, there's no chance at when mechanica at you fixed a Boeing.
Hakuna.
That one there's no chance.
Oh, but the small ones, yes.
The small ones, the four-seater, you're a maestro engineer and a maestro pilot, and you fixed it and kamenuka.
Yes.
And you and your wife want to vuka border.
Yes.
By all means.
And now that begs the question, when you said you have specific routes to Mombasa.
Yes.
And I think, okay, I hope I'll be able to explain this properly. Like, does it mean ile hewa umepitia is the exact hewa you'll go back through? Like, how definite are the air routes?
So we fly using airways, right?
Yes.
And around an airway, we make sure there's separation minima. Separation meaning me and you cannot collide, because I'm not the one going to Mombasa. Sometimes we'll have two aircrafts. Yeah. So it'll either be separated by the heading I'm flying. Yeah. Like if I'm flying to Mombasa, initially I'll fly this way and you'll fly this way. Then eventually there's an approach fix where we'll all start our approach for the runway from. And then we're also separated vertically, which is very important. So me going, if I'm flying in a westerly direction, for example, right, I'll fly an even or an odd altitude, depending on whether I'm flying easterly or westerly. So that if you're flying reciprocal heading, you're coming from Mombasa and I'm going, there's no chance of collision. Because if you're flying westerly and I'm flying easterly, you'll be flying an even altitude and I'll be flying an odd altitude. So there's no chance of us colliding, right?
Okay.
So there's separation minimum, and of course there's radar and all of that.
Okay.
But we use airways to fly.
Okay, and for fun, there is no nini, like there's no way you are like flying the same, but is there room for competition? Like I'm thinking in matatu terms now. Like is there a room that Eric anafikanga Mombasa na 20 minutes? As in, is there?
I'd be lying. So I'm just gonna give you the true story, of course. So within the bounds of safe operation, yes. Yeah, guys, fukuzana in a way.
Oh, so you can see. Where would you?
But then literally you can see. So if I'm flying, let's say I'm flying to Mombasa and you took off 10 minutes before me.
Yes.
And I'm also going to Mombasa. Maybe I'm lighter. At some point, from my equipment to something called a traffic collision avoidance system.
Yes.
I'll see you on my screen, and then I can also just based on the distance and heading that I'm seeing that you are, I can look outside. There's company, right? So once in a while, it's not that we are racing at last one is no. What happens is people will give. Maybe I'm estimating to land here at 12:40.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll say 12:38, so that radar can give me fast. Yeah, so they can give me priority. Yeah, so I'm trying to EBA an extra 3 minutes. Remember, it's a very delicate dance. Yes. Keeping time. What's the biggest thing here clients complaining about at the airport? These guys are late. So for us, keeping within that time, a minute means a lot for us. Because like where I work, when I land in Mombasa, within 25 minutes, I'm airborne back to Nairobi. The aircraft has been cleaned. If need be, it's been refueled. Passengers have been disembarked. Others have boarded. Within that 25 minutes, and we're back airborne. So you can imagine if we delay 5 minutes, it'll have a ripple effect on the next flight. By the time it's the 10th flight, we're looking at an hour delay. So minutes really matter. So we try to keep it as tight as possible. So if there's a chance for me to overtake King Ori, by all means.
By 2 minutes?
By all means, I'll take it.
And what is your matatu version of Ndile and Ndege ya Wale? What is your matatu version here? You can actually see like the person.
Yeah, we can no, not the person. So I'll give you one example. So at time there's something called airmanship. So we're also supposed to be courteous. Yeah, there's gentleman.
Oh, namuna horn.
There's no horn. There's gentleman. So there was a time we were lining up. We're preparing to line up on the runway. So my company aircraft was here, and there was a South African airline. I think they're called Airlink on that side. And initially, air traffic control, they were supposed to go fast, right? But now as we were waiting for the aircraft to land, she confused and almost cleared us fast. Now, the courteous thing to do for me is to remind her that they were number one, right? But in this case, I wanted to go ahead. So, but she remembered, and I just saw the guy doing for me this from his cockpit. Yeah, like, no, we're taking you today. But that was bad airmanship on my end. You're supposed to be courteous.
You felt guilty.
I just felt a bit embarrassed.
Oh, so you guys don't overlap with the actual plane? No. You overlap with the?
Yeah, once airborne. Not overlap, but you'll try get priority. You try get cleared fast.
Okay.
Yeah.
How different you drive to?
Yes.
So how different is, okay, of course, minus the rules, how different is how you treat your car versus how you treat a plane? They're both vehicles, right? Of course, different rules. So in this sense, there's a move you can do with your car now, by the niko sawa, like niko sawa. With regulations, are you allowed to have fun with the plane at some point?
Not really have fun. Because we're very restricted. So apart from the regulator, an airline, now I'm talking about $40 million. Yeah? So you have to treat this thing like a baby, like so that it can last longer.
Yes.
So the only place where we have fun perhaps is competing who's landing better, silent competition. Like we'll compare landings, maybe without even saying it out loud, but I know my landing was better.
Okay.
But such things, yeah. Okay. But not a team. Nimefanya scramble. No. You'll be fired very fast. We also have a prefect, a tracking device. I think that records all the parameters of the aircraft.
Everything you do.
So, and there's a guy he's the head of safety. In fact, he's a friend of mine. His job is to just look at those parameters and say, hey, you coming into Jomo Jana,
Yes.
You guys configured the aircraft late. What was happening? You have to explain. Now the captain, the boss has to explain. They don't call first officers, they call the captain. Yeah.
Okay.
Why is it that when you are landing in Malindi, it looks like you are fast, or it looks like you came low? So those systems are there, of course, just to safeguard the risks that pilots would take. Yeah. It removes a bit of the fun out of flying, but it creates a higher barrier of safety.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how correct me if I'm wrong, Ama, bust this out for us. Ati helicopter is the creme de la creme of flying. Ati, oh, it's so difficult and it pays better than any other form of flying. Is that true?
In Kenya, well, first of all, for me personally, I've never been interested in rotor flight. It's a very different principle of flight to a fixed wing.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, what I fly is a fixed wing. Aircraft, conventional wings, engine, under the wings. Rotorcraft has a completely different, because it's a rotor, it's...
Also, you wouldn't know anything about a helicopter?
If right now I was put in a helicopter, I can't fly it.
Nothing?
Yeah. But plus, so the subjects are the same apart from principles of flight, and it's a different license. They go through the same, you have to go to Shule, same PPL, private pilot license, commercial pilot license. But now the subject for principles of flight, the content is different. The methodology is the same. All the others are the same.
So the principle
around how a chopper flies is different. I've always had a bit of apprehension because I feel like, you see, if my engine fails in my plane, I have another engine. There's a procedure to fly on one engine and we land safely. If a rotor fails, there's something called auto rotation, but I'm a bit apprehensive.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's true that it has, it pays better.
It's more expensive to train. As for paying better,
train,
I don't know, because the chopper pilots I hear of, they do well. Yeah, they do well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you have a very deep story on addiction. We have an episode where we featured David Ogot na mambo ya alcoholism. I'm very curious to hear how that intertwines na flying. But kidogo tu highlighting to the lifestyle of a pilot. Uzuri wako, you are a truthful man. We've established that as much. Wanasema, you told me you were married and I was shocked.
That I'm married?
Yes. I was shocked. Nambia, you guys are the greatest victims of paradox of choice.
We get a bad rep. So, I'll say this, as with any industry, right? You have to inculcate your own version of discipline. Because even in a corporate setting, access to the opposite sex is there. Hierarchies exist. People can take advantage of the hierarchy. In aviation, we also have cabin fever.
Cabin fever, tell us. Do tell, cabin fever.
Cabin fever, maybe you're outstationed for a long time with the same crew.
Yeah. You start zero grazing.
So we also get a bit of a bad rep. Movies have made it seem like, pilots are just out here philandering and just,
yes.
Well, there's that. Personally, I make sure, because I respect my marriage. I'm also lucky. By the time I was joining where I work, for example, it caught me in a maturer season in life. I literally joined and got married within the same 2 months.
Yes.
And I had already made certain decisions about my life before the fact, and this ties into the addiction story. So perhaps had this job had caught me in an earlier season in life, I would have fallen to all the trappings that come, the negative trappings that come with the industry. Sometimes there's a bit of alcohol abuse. There's that, those relationship dynamics you speak of. But for me personally, I was lucky. By the time I joined the environment like I work in now, I'd kind of put a certain lifestyle in the back burner already, because I'd lived it all. Alcohol took me on the wildest ride for the longest time. So anything and everything that comes with that kind of lifestyle, I had already done and dusted. So on a personal level, I try to steer clear of anything that would cause problems in my marriage. Yeah.
And Kai,
But does it exist? Yes. I also don't want to be dishonest. Does it exist in that kind of setup? It does.
Cabin fever. Strong cabin fever. Now check. You say something like this gig gets you at a maturer phase in your life. This coincides with a concept I've been interacting with. I'm scared of the person I would have become if a certain amount of money got me at a certain age. Because I've seen what money does to people at a certain age. And let me name drop someone for the purposes of this example. Cairo is a brilliant gentleman. He's full of ideas and stuff. And I think, I may be wrong, I'm not an expert, but I'm saying, labda, that money thing, there's something money does to you at a certain age that probably money did to him. And this is purely based on, let's say, his responses. Cairo would have had people on his side, Sana, right? But he got to a place where some people were looking forward to his downfall.
A lot of people.
Yeah, because of how he used to respond to certain people, because there's a certain element in EOTWE of being on top of the world that money does to you. So, you kusema, like you get a gig at a maturer phase in your life, do you think it's accurate to say that it's not about age as in age the number, but money goes hand in hand with maturity?
You couldn't have said it better, because what tends to happen, like I said earlier, pilots have a relatively higher remuneration than a lot of society. So you can end up a pilot as young as 22. So here you are, you finish flight school, you join an airline, and you're getting a certain amount of money that's incomparable to most of your peers and perhaps even people older than you. So they say with great power comes great responsibility. Now, a lot of pilots have fallen victim to that thing. So Subarus, fast cars, women, it's almost a natural thing to do because I have money. The good friend of mine who we talk on the phone, and he's always he seeks counsel from me because he knows my story and there's some tribulations he faces. And sometimes I always tell him, I also empathize with you because you're single. So some of the things you're doing are almost natural. It's not a crime. It's not infidelity, So that, because most people learn the fire is hot by touching it.
Yeah, and it's no mistake that money rhymes with honey.
Yes. So with money comes access. With access comes excess. With excess comes repercussions. So a lot of pilots do fall victim to that thing. And then, of course, there's the bravado of being a pilot. Let's also not pretend that there's no bravado. Sometimes at the airport, I see how people look at me when I'm in uniform. There's a reverence to, wow. So you can also use that power for manipulation,
Yes.
But then I'm a mini pilot, man. So there's that as well. But it's all about managing temperament. I like that you bring up Cairo. I did an interview with him. I've done several with him on my podcast.
Yes.
And I would always say that I think he was a victim of youth as well. You're a young guy. You've done some things that people 20 years older than you perhaps have not accomplished. So your ego is through the roof.
Yes.
And then here you are on social media, you're also a star. That platform that you say builds people up for the slaughtering.
Norma, yes.
And then now money and inexperience, So some of the mistakes he was making to me were textbook. Like, that's textbook. That is how old? That's textbook. Wrong mamas, textbook. And wrong, however they'll take it here. But the kind of people that he was fronting, anyone who's a bit seasoned would see that that's a monetary thing kind of setup. It would appear so. That's why when fortunes turned, you saw what happened. So it's a delicate thing. And may I tell guys, if you're a aspiring pilot, you're just about to finish flying school and you're young, and just understand that some of the decisions you make in your early career can either rob you of your career or can shape your career in a way that's irreparable.
Yeah.
And you have the best chance to make sound investments from a young age. I have a colleague of mine who I really look up to. I'm sure he's going to be watching this. He's in our airline, which is relatively young. He's an older guy, but he's short of 50. And he joined the airlines way younger. Yes. And he's been able to invest. He's been able to invest so well.
Yes.
That right now he's almost flying just for float. I don't want to let go of this car. So it's in party car. So he's at that point where he's deciding, do I really need to fly anymore?
Yeah.
because he set himself up, but it's because he sacrificed when he was young.
Okay.
When guys were buying Subarus, he had a simple car. When guys were wasting money on things, he was balancing mortgages, so he ended up owning a house young, just making very great investments. Yeah. So it's a very intentional endeavor. You don't have to fall into the trap.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really hope Cairo finds the grace to bounce back because he's a brilliant mind. And what I say happens to him, I recognize that feeling of feeling like unaweza kuwa on top of the world. And I always thank God that I met Gor, my first money teacher, because I'm like, when he throws me into the rabbit hole of reading culture and understanding the concept of money, it shifts my world kabisa. So I probably would have had access to what I've had access to, but ni rahisi sana. Ni rahisi sana you roll into a different path.
Yes.
And I really hope, and I think we are on a mission to make sure people get as much knowledge as possible, because I keep saying knowledge is also a burden, but it's also very important.
Yes.
For me, it's the best form of liberation. So now, you also mentioned something as you're making that description. Wrong mama, you understand? And people underestimate the value of the right woman.
Yes.
And I like how you respect your wife under the circumstances that I know, because I've also known a few things about the aviation industry. What do you define, Ama, what do you think is the proper definition of the right woman?
Well, for me, I'll speak for me right now. My wife and I met when I had, my fortunes were really down, you know. Contrary to popular belief, I might be looking here in a nice white shirt. Just 2.5 years ago, I was zero bobbing, man. I was down on my knees, you know. Life had...
Zero bobbing with a pilot's license?
Yes.
Okay, nice.
Yes. Because I'm a choma. I've told my story on a different platform as well, like
Yes.
addiction, and I really struggled with alcohol for very many years, but I was very resilient. And I kept the fight going until I figured it out. And by figuring it out, I'm talking about being sober, you know. So a lot of lost opportunities along the way. I managed to finish flight school by the grace of God, and having wonderful parents and support system. Because at some point, they were this close from like, you've chomed enough, you know, like go figure out something else. So I'm lucky in that regard. So when my wife and I met, this was what, in 2021, 2020, or the end of 2020. I was completely down on my luck, you know, jobless, just really ruined a very nice opportunity. And we built from there. So she was not dating me for anything I had. We didn't date because of things I had. In fact, if anything, she had more than me at the time, you know. As a law student at the time, she had more than me based off an allowance. So I was lucky in that regard. We've been able to build to this point together. And when I made my decision to become sober, having gone through all those things, it tied into some of my principles. Like I said, now, if I'm settling down with this lady, I'm going to honor my marriage, you know. Honoring my marriage includes things like fidelity. It includes things like honesty. So I try to steer clear of anything that would get me off that track, because at some point for me, trouble was so familiar. I was so used to trouble. I was so used to being in trouble. Law enforcement, you've been caught drunk and disorderly, mara this, mara that. So once I sobered up and I saw what order is like, I'm like, what? This is what this feels like. I took it and ran, right? So, and I've seen how doing right by a woman also, I believe in God, so it has blessings as well. I've seen the blessings of doing right by her, you know. And it doesn't mean that I'm a saint, you know. It doesn't mean that I don't ever notice women. Women are in the world, yeah? But it's a choice. Don't engage. It's a choice. Going down an alternative path is a choice. Whether people say men inherently, it is said that inherently we are philanderers, yeah? I don't subscribe, yeah? And I'll do everything within my power to stay the course of just honoring the vows that I took. Yeah.
And you've seen the benefits and the values of being.
Yeah.
Kwanza, you've said some that's a hot wires hapo ndani. Unaona kwa list of areas za women you should not tread around: nurses, lawyers, teachers, evil. like in that particular order. So wewe ni pilot umepatana na lawyer and it's working.
Yes.
Haina formula.
There's no one size fits all, man. It's something you work on. If you have a foundation of respect in your marriage,
yes,
mnaheshimiana, like of course love is important, and not love in that kiddish way of oh my God, has she texted right now? Oh my God, no. It evolves, and the funny thing I've noticed about love, the more you stay together, the more mature it becomes, and the more deep. It's not that immature love for, okay, I'm missing her so much. It's so much deeper in that if I make the wrong decision now, I'm ruining our future. It's so, and then when you build things together and see things coming together, like we had these goals. Sometimes we look at a book we used to have with her and the things we'd write, and some of them we have now and we've accomplished and we're accomplishing. It feels so nice. And I wouldn't want to destabilize that of some silly decisions.
Good vibes, good vibes. And when you say 2.5 years ago, you were zero bobbing, right? And now you are where you are, like you can have a conversation like sober, inspirational, you've started something going, EOTWE, good vibes. What does this teach you about bouncing back?
So I'm almost 5 years sober. 2.5 years ago, I was in aviation, but I was teaching. And I was only teaching because my alcoholic journey took me to a point where I was jobless in terms of flying. So I had to start from scratch. Teaching is the entry level of flying now. If you're a licensed pilot, it's like quote unquote the lowest cadre of. And I was not even teaching. I was teaching theory. I was a ground school instructor. It's called ground school. Yeah.
Yes.
And some lady and a couple in the school at Wilson gave me an opportunity, and I built from there. I learned a lot. I was not earning a lot of money. So when I say zero bobbing, not literally, I was not earning like a pilot. I was just a teacher. And so I had to build from there. I said 2.5 years because that's when I landed this job that I'm in right now.
Yes.
So bouncing back is, if the kind of bouncing back I've gone through in my life, provided you have that fight in you, you can bounce back. So what I mean is, in the context of addiction, I kept trying and failing. I go to rehab, I come out, I'm trying to be sober, and somehow I end up slipping back, I trauma again, but every time I was learning, and I never at one point said, Merusha mkono, let now life just sweep me and let me just go and die, The fight was in there. Even at my lowest moments, I'd be in rehab being the guy who's changamkad, trying to lead the rest, So provided you're breathing and you have dreams and goals, me flying I was never going to let go of the life. So I didn't even take offense if someone said, ama hii kitu ya flying, ama achana nayo, Ama maybe it's not for you. I used to get so offended. I'm like, no. Yeah. So I always knew the mission. And I was struggling with something. And once I figured that out and I stayed resolute, it took me long to finish flying school. Flying school, if you have all the resources, 2.5, maximum 3 years. Took me almost double that because of the tumultuous relationship with alcohol.
Yes.
By many estimations, I should have given up,
Yes.
There are probably some people who can't believe I am where I am right now because they saw the different versions of me as I went. But I'll just say, provided you have me, for me, I'd say God and a resolute dream, and you can bounce back. It's possible.
And is there an opportunity that alcohol cost you mpaka ukasema enye?
Yes.
One that you can never remember, one that you can never forgive alcohol for?
There are several. So, but the one that one for, I was like, So there's a company that took me for training in Malaysia. Like now the dream was coming alive. Here I am. I've finished flight school. I've been sober for a bit. I've landed a dream job. We're going to Malaysia for training on the aircraft that they operate. And it was like, yes. But Nani, who's an addict now? Because I see a figured, you've been able to stay sober. Come on. See, Paka guys have been leaving in you to invest in you to go to Malaysia. Sumefika. If you can handle all these things, you've built bridges. Surely you can have a drink. How can I drink? Where's are you? A drink. So I remember that drink, I mulled over it for 1 hour. I went to Quickmart, Kiambu Road, sat in the car. I went and bought the liquor, bought a chaser, sat in the car for 1 hour.
You've not touched it.
Yeah, just trying to play all the scenarios, because addiction is insidious. Once you've established you're an addict, you will never be able to drink normally. I can never become a guy of 2 beers at nowadays meaning say 2 beers, because it's like your brain is rewired. You can never, you drink for the effect. So until the effect is there, and you will keep taking it till your life goes into shambles. So for addicts, once you've established you have a problem with substance, it could be alcohol, could be the other substances that exist. For you to have a normal life, it's 0 hero. There's no in between. There's no meaning kakwota moja. Once you've established you're an addict, there's no going back. It's 0 or hero. So I tried controlling all the outcomes. Like if I drink, but we're traveling next week to Malaysia, so I'll just drink maybe twice. I drank and I barely made that trip. By the time I was going on that trip, I didn't even look like me, because it captures your whole life. Yeah. If I was to drink alcohol today and we met tomorrow, you wouldn't even recognize me. Yeah, it's that, it takes over completely. So of course I went to Malaysia, I tried to do the training, and at some point my body gave in. I started having seizures. I had to be hospitalized. Of course the company had to terminate my training. Yeah. Probably something very extreme to say on a public forum, but I've shared my story before, and sometimes I fear, like, it's gonna prevent my future. But if it can help someone, bigger picture is more important, because there are so many guys, even within the industry, who are suffering with this thing and they don't know a way out. There are guys who they are holding on to their jobs by a thread, right? But the rest of their life is just chaos because of alcohol. Yeah. So I lost that opportunity. And I remember when I came back, my brother organized me to go straight to rehab from the airport, and I remember sitting in there thinking, Yani, you figured, you built all these things, you built all this trust, and from one decision, in less than a month, you're in rehab again with nothing to show. And you've lost everything. You've lost all your social capital. You've lost trust with everyone just because of, so that for me is when I had my turning point.
That one decision to bigger that drink that you had in the car that you mulled over for an hour.
Yes.
So just to give perspective or context, what does life look like if you did not take that drink?
I'm a guy of poetic justice, so I look at it positively in that I'm glad I took that drink, because it's made me who I am today.
Okay.
Yeah. The fact that I had not yet let go of those ideations, if I didn't take that drink, I would have taken another one.
And even me, as a guy of poetic justice and a big fan of hypothesis, if you did not take that drink, your testimony would have been, by virtue of that, I did not take this drink, is why I'm here today. Is it better than now? Like, hypothetically speaking.
So you've gotten on Aristotle level, eh?
I'm a big fan of hypothesis.
But no, because I needed to be broken down that last time to let go of that. I still had that final hope for one day. It's every addict's dream. That one day, that's why you'll find someone is day one rehab and is contemplating quitting, and then he's already thinking, so that means on my wedding I can't have wine. Boss, you don't even have a girlfriend. It's that idea that one day I'll be able to drink normally, and it'll never happen. It'll never happen for an addict. Yeah.
So before we talk about your podcast, now why you need a side hustle as a pilot, or whichever is the side hustle, I'm very before we talk about that, like, what do we trace your addiction to? Let me give you context. One time in high school, I believe in Form 2, I stand with a friend of mine, and we used to have a break, like at night preps, we used to have a break at 9 p.m. We go into a break ya Majimoto, and then we come back, do I think 1 more hour, and then we go sleep at 10. So this day, I remember my friend, he was my friend then. We had up and down relationships. Some of your boys would know who I'm talking about, but I won't mention his name out of respect. So on this particular day, it is me, this friend, and someone else who was known as Chimney because of his prowess in smoking weed. And I think this was his first day. So he was presented with an option. And I remember the Chimney asking him, like, uko sure? Like, are you sure you want to try this? And I'm here. I could have said, I would also want to try, but no. And I remember him making, it was day one. It was ground zero for him in Form 2. By the time we're finishing Form 4, he was something else. You understand?
Yes.
That day, that decision, like he made that decision that day, right? Also, when it comes to your journey, you have your patient zero day. Like this was the day I make a decision to join, to try, and people always talk about, oh, it will be cool, itakusaidia hivi. What is your entry point?
So I always say this, for me, the stars aligned. So what I've come to learn, because I've been to rehab severally, and they teach you about the disease of addiction, you understand the science behind it. So what happened was, I was 15, turning 16, Form 1. And that's naturally, if you think about the Kenyan context, that's when you're in high school. And it tends to be when boys, I don't know about girls, but boys want to experiment for the first time, because you've transitioned from that kind of caretaken environment in primary. You're kind of now more standing on your own. Your puberty is there, your peer pressure. So for me, there was that already curiosity. And then coupled just there was problems happening at home. And then now what I find out later was that there's a genetic predisposition. So all it was waiting for was to be activated. So from the first time I drank, and I say this with the earnestness of my heart, the first time I ever got tipsy, I knew I liked it more than my friends. I could just tell, like, I fell in love with it immediately, the effect of alcohol. Once I felt higher, inhibitions have gone, tipsy. I tried to get drunk at every opportunity thereafter. Of course, in the context of school. So it doesn't mean that I was drinking the whole, no, but every opportunity. So if it's Friday and I've saved up my break money, when I go home, I'll go to the super. And for me, when I trace it back, some of my friends who are friends till today now, and we think together in hindsight, they're like, yeah, you already had a problem. Because even when you'd come to our place to play PS, you'd come with quarters. That time you're 16. Mi niko na mafuraha kenzangu. So I was addicted very young. Very, very young. I mean, and of course it had its even physiological effects, because what alcohol does, and people think it's insensitive to say, it retards you, literally. So when you're 15, now you're operating like 13. When you're 20, it makes you act younger than you are from a maturity standpoint. And I had to catch up to my age in sobriety. I had to shed a lot of silly, childish kind of thinking. And of course, the longer you stay sober, you catch up to your age, and at some point you even transcend your age. So you'll be 34, but your outlook is 40. You're an old soul. I've been called an old soul severally. But Form 1, that was ground zero. And it took me on a roller coaster, 15 years thereabout, of just chaos, ups and downs, lost dreams, but also on the flip side, a lot of lessons learned. I always say this, and it's a controversial statement, especially to my loved ones, who I love so much, who supported me, my family, my parents, my siblings. I would never do it differently, because I love who I am today. Those experiences, rehab, man, rehab sucks. 3 months at a time, 8 times. Sucks. Those are years locked up, but so many lessons learned. I was not just packed somewhere on a shelf. Sometimes people think when you're in rehab, come up on a shelf. You're living and you're experiencing and you're learning. And for me, with every subsequent relapse I had, there were lessons learned, culminating the last one I talk of. That was the final one, the final boss. Like, kumbe, it doesn't matter. Money, no money, happiness, it doesn't matter. This thing, you drink, it will finish you. It doesn't matter if you're happy, sad, yeah. for an addict, it's case closed. Some addicts take longer to figure that out. But once you figure it out, it's like a spiritual awakening. You cannot unsee. Once it's clicked, like, okay, this thing has weathered me, I'll never be able to enjoy it normally. Case closed.
There's nothing controversial about what you've said. In fact, philosophically, it's brilliant, but it's only controversial when you're telling it to a high school student who is about to start, because you can't tell them, you just drink and find out. You understand?
Yeah.
You can't then tell, it's very weird when I watch high school students who drink, you have no idea. You have no idea of the pain, realizing all your dreams, but you can't enjoy them fully because you are a slave to something, right? But at that age, they can't tell. So if you are to talk to someone who has not started, right? You can't tell them, like, your experience, you learn from your experience. It's very dangerous.
I think I tell people, or rather they say, they say what smart people learn from their mistakes, wise people learn from others. Yeah, you don't have to touch the fire to confirm it's hot. Sometimes I wonder, because I don't have kids yet, but I plan to have children, right? This is the internet. The internet doesn't forget. They'll see, hiya dad, kumbe you're a turn-up guy. Kumbe, mbona unatuambia tusijaribu?
Yes.
And sometimes I wonder now, how will I explain this to these guys? But when I look back at how we were raised, our generation, there was a gap of information and honesty. We were kind of treated like a subclass in terms of say wataradanisha.
Sisi ndio tulizaliwa na ati kids are bought in the supermarket.
Yeah, yes, that kids are bought. You can talk to people. You can reason with a kid, leave alone even a teenager. Nowadays, a 9-year-old, you can reason with them and they can reason with you. So yes. I'll tell my kids as I'll tell a kid right now who's contemplating starting, or perhaps has started and they're starting to notice, this thing, I'm liking it a bit much. You can stop it now because it only gets worse. Take it from me. You can stop it. You can actually stop it and nip it in the bud now. Just say, for me, alcohol almost took me on a wild ride. There's no need to explore further because you might not survive. I've lost friends. 8 times rehab, guys were dying, because the ecosystem in Kenya, there's only so many rehabs. So I'll come back, Kingori, you're back. How long did you last this time? I did 6 months. Next time, Kingori, you didn't hear about Kingori? Yeah? You didn't hear about Nani? And then I start having closer brushes with death. When I was having seizures, I was saved by someone putting their phone in my mouth so I don't swallow my tongue. Otherwise, I was gone, right? So I have a friend who had a seizure on a stairwell and he fell, hit his head, blood clot, died. Also a pilot. He was in the national carrier. Just like that, he left 2 boys and a wife. So the worst case in addiction, we say it's jails, institutions, and death. Those are the sure bets. So if you started institutions is either you're in rehab, by the time someone has to remove you from normal life to put you in an institution because your life is unmanageable. That's track 1. Jails, cell, walevis. They even used to say, I became a cell was normal, man. Where Cairo is, I've been 2.5 weeks. Yeah, all alcohol. In fact, I always wonder if you're in cell and you're sober, it means you're a real criminal. Like yako ni ukweli. When ni mwizi cha ukweli. Because drug and disorderlies, were picked up here. Jails, death. If you started institutions, jails, what's coming for sure is death. It's a given. Yeah. So to the young people watching, if you're watching, life is so sweet, sober. It's so sweet, sober. And even the people who are social, quote unquote, drinkers, deep down there's something booze robs them, and they will never admit it. There's financial, and a big one that I've come to discover over time when I interact with people who still drink, albeit maybe not addictively, potential. Because a lot of time is spent, you're doing your trade, and then your downtime you're drinking, as opposed to all the other amazing things you could be doing with your downtime. Yeah, figuring out the world, pursuing hobbies that have value, you know. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey. Very, very interesting. Asante sana for sharing your story. And our audience wanajua, Eric runs EOTWE. And the first time I see your EOTWE, and I believe, I don't know kama I saw it by myself, or it was a shout out from WAF, because EOTWE, it's a very interesting name. So in my rationalization, I was like, Mse lazima kweni Msamburu. That's a nice name, EOTWE. So kumbe it's actually an abbreviation. Every other time with Eric,
Yes.
One of the finest podcasts we have in the country.
Thank you.
Right? Karibu. So now, piloting na podcasting ni gani ndio side hustle?
So for me, I'll say I always wanted to be a pilot since I was young. Like I have two uncles who are in that industry, but I also wanted to be a radio presenter. Okay. So my dream was always to be a pilot and radio. In fact, I used to say pilot by day, radio by night. That was the moniker I used to adapt. But of course, that has evolved to podcasting. And I like podcasting because it's a free format, you know. Say whatever comes to your mind as it comes to your mind. There's no script. So as soon as I started my first podcast just before COVID or during COVID.
Yes.
I had a co-host who had grown quite a bit. But then, of course, my fortunes at some point, I chomad, I had to leave that. But I always said, the moment I get back on my feet, where I'm able to, you know how expensive to have production. You need camera, you need crew.
Yes.
So as soon as I was able, I set it up with immediate effect. It's about now 10 months ago. I shoot from my house. My lovely wife allowed me to use one of the extra bedrooms. I converted it to a studio. And so you asked which is a side hustle. So for me, it's my digital shamba. You know, the way most of guys use extra remuneration to buy land to speculate. Me, this is my land. This is my version of land, right? So watching it grow, doing interviews, and just seeing it grow, it's such a beautiful process. I love flying so much. I love podcasting equally, right? And I found a way to also bring the two worlds together, because apart from having your normal episodes, I also do a sub-series called Airmen, where I interview people from my industry. So far, I've only done pilots, but I eventually want to do engineers, cabin crew, ground service agents, just the whole picture, just to sensitize people on what goes into aviation from all angles. So I love podcasting, man. Like this, for me, this is such, I love this so much, you know, coming here and being able to have a conversation. It's second nature to me. So I plan to pursue it. And a good thing with podcasting, I couldn't have retirement. I can do it with gray hair. You know, you can be in your 70s still running a successful podcast. So it's been fun so far. I just had my biggest episode, controversial, but I was with Caliph Cairo. And that episode actually did many things for me. My whole thing around my podcast, my philosophy is to humanize the person behind the persona, because everyone is a human, right? It doesn't matter if they are quote unquote controversial. I had Kibe on, and of course people were trying to be up in arms, and I'm like, I will sit with almost anyone, because everyone has a story to tell. There's a human side, and the feedback I always get from my podcast is, "Hiya, we've never seen that side of that guy. Hiya, Kume Kibe is like that. Hiya, Abel, you brought him out in a different way." So I try bring out the human, leave the persona. You know, let's humanize this person. And so far, it's been an amazing endeavor. Like I'm saying, the Cairo episode, something which, of course, you know, because you're already quite big. It gave me a glimpse into the potential of this thing. Because, yes, I've been making YouTube money, but this one showed me, "Hiya, you mean you can make YouTube money?" Like, so that was also eye-opening. And, of course, I just plan to grow it to as big as it can get bigger guests, more interesting guests. I'd like to officially extend an invitation to you.
That came before this happened.
Yeah.
So, sawa, you consider it done. I have no choice.
They've seen.
And in a nice way. and in a nice way. Okay.
But you're a maverick. I think, and I don't know if you you leave this in. I take pride in, I really take pride in uplifting people. We live in a society so deficient of that, you know. I like to prop people up, especially when it's for real. Like good landing, I'll just make people feel good about themselves. You're not a small guy in this space, and I'm not saying this in a heshimiwa kind of way.
No, I don't even know how to react to that, because
you cringe as I compliment you. You've done a lot for this space, man. Like, you've done a lot for this space. I was shocked to find out that we're age mates, because, bro, you've been doing this for. That means you are doing this as a young guy. That means you.
Sijui nitajificha wapi. Thank you, first of all. That is high praise. That is high praise. I not to be modest, but Mimi, I approach it from a place of I'm glad we reach people, and I hope we reach as many people as possible. I don't know what uni accuse of ati I don't live my life na hiyo so-called ati celeb. So me, I'm having fun. And just the way you wanted to be a pilot growing up, Mimi, I will do anything for comedy. And also, I'm a big fan of conversation. I'm a big fan of ideas. I'm a big fan of like knowing. And I will never forget one time a cousin of mine bashing me because my mind races so much. So he had been called for a meeting that I was in class 5 and he was 20 years. So I was unatembeanga nini na huyo mtoto. But so now he was embarrassed, but he can't avoid me. And I remember one time him reprimanding me because I can't stay on one topic. Namuuliza swali, and then he answers, and I'm interested in another topic because he's older, and I think he knows.
You're curious.
So now I remember shutting up because nasikia kumuuliza inaniwasha, but I can't because anasema we discuss one topic tusiende swali ingine. And I think that later kwa realization, because I've learned, most of the things I've learned is from feedback from our audience. And yes, I've done this for some time. I've had these conversations for, I believe this is, I was on air and TV every week for 7 years.
Wow.
So now plus.
And you have a vast range. I'll snitch on you to your audience. Before we started shooting, we had almost a podcast, just picking each other's brains. And I can tell you're a very curious person. I share that trait as well.
Yeah.
Thirst for information, like.
Sana.
And I want you to share with me some of those books you talked about.
Give me a topic you'd like to read on, and then I'll give you a book.
Philosophy, especially.
Philosophy. I'm a big fan of, I don't know kama this falls in philosophy, but anything written Yuval Noah Harari. He has a book inaitwa Nexus. He has a book, my favorite book of all time, inaitwa Sapiens. Gives you an understanding of who we humans are, why people do the things they do. Like one of my favorite concepts in the book is the origin of greed. Like it opens you up to human nature. Like one of my favorite books written. But kitu yote imeandikwa na Yuval Noah Harari, I endorse 100%.
I'll make sure.
Kama ni money, I have a whole syllabus. I think in terms of ideas, the first book Gor Semelango recommends to me, it was The Magic of Thinking Big. It trains your mind to think possibilities. Like when most people are approached, most people face adversaries, you always think of, hey, niaje, can I do that? And the team that we are working with right now, I'm trying to get them to a mindset of, like, I was shocked. Tulikuwa na discuss kitu and then wakaona price, nikaropokwa. I don't like saying prices. So I say the price wa kitu, wakashtuka. And I'm like, I understand where this comes from, but kumbe, when you enter the mindset, your mind opens to possibilities.
Yes.
You start seeing, like, ukipresentiwa na scenario, you start working.
A can-do attitude.
Solutions. Yes, a can-do attitude. The Magic of Thinking Big, written by David Schwartz. When it comes to the money syllabus, the base understanding, I recommend the Richest Man in Babylon. My friend
Someone
Alex
recommended. In fact, at some point I had that book in my possession. I just never read it.
Please read it.
I think I'll make it a point.
Please read it. It's written in the context of Babylon. George Clason, the author. It's written in the context of Babylon. I believe this is even before Jesus is born. Like, it's a very enterprising system, written in stories. Now, stories very relatable, and everything that is written in that book you can see in the world today. So inamaanisha in terms of human nature, nothing much has changed.
Yes.
Okay? Nothing much has changed. But in the real sense, ukiangalia, we are the same people, just under different scenarios. So when you ukisoma George Clason as a beginner, very interesting stories. Tunaenda kwa psychology of money. The greatest lesson I get from that is the concept of enough. That's why when you ask me, mtu akikuja nipatie 50 million to push an agenda, I can't. Because I know, like, a liberation, by the way, how you relate with money is different.
Yes.
I don't have the 50 million, but
yet.
I know how to make it. You understand?
Yes.
Like, I know there are certain things if I do.
Plus, you know you will make it.
I know
the
I'll
path
make
you're
it.
on, yeah.
So sina pressure. So why would I? You understand?
Yes.
So, and it opens your mind. Before someone reads, mtu anaweza sema, huyu mse anasema nini, but you go read. That's why wanasema, everything you need is written in a book. So psychology of money takes you through the concept of savings, investing, how, like, developing a money mindset. And then now there's yani sasa hii ni, sasa ukigraduate, the finest, like ile sasa ya kukuambia all the options. Like, unataka kutengeneza pesa polepole, unataka kutengeneza haraka, unataka kutengeneza sure bet. MJ DeMarco ameandika kitabu inaitwa, money is my favorite topic, that's why MJ DeMarco ameandika book inaitwa The Millionaire Fast Lane. So when you combine all this, some of the ideas align, some of them challenge each other, but now it gets you, because money works differently for everybody, so it puts you in a place where you have choice now.
The passion comes out, eh? I can see the passion.
And that was changed. My life was changed by one book. And Gor Semelango changed my life with one book. And that's the same thing that happened to him. In 2004, someone recommends The Magic of Thinking Big for him, and it changes his life immensely.
Can I say something in parting, perhaps?
Yes, please.
First, to aviators who are aspiring, it's always important to mention, aviation sometimes is a treacherous path. There are so many challenges on the path to becoming a qualified pilot. Leave alone my story and addiction, even just the normal path. It requires a lot of hard work, sacrifice. But it's all worth it in the end. When you're having a hard time at whatever level it is, we all went through that. If you're struggling to land right now and you're doing your circuits, it'll come too. If you're struggling to get your first solo, it'll come too. If there's an exam, maybe you're doing your CPL exams and it's killing you because there's one that you keep failing, keep at it. Whatever happens, don't throw in the towel. We all went through that path. And it gets better at every stage. Every new stage in aviation has more fulfillment around it. It's important to mention that. The one for addicts, I think I've already said.
Good vibes.
And of course, every other time with Eric.
Kabisa.
Please go check out my podcast on YouTube, Every Other Time with Eric. Just riveting conversations. Again, to humanize the person behind the persona. Please do go check that out as well.
Kabisa. Hata juu story, down the video, kwa hii video, there's a description. Hapo kwa hii description, we have a direct link to Eric's channel, hiyo EOTWE, Every Other Time with Eric. Click to alafu make sure umesubscribe, because huko pia kuna good vibes. Thank you, Eric, for making
Thank you so much.
Karibu sana.
For inviting me, man. It was a real pleasure.
Karibu sana.
Yeah, I was masterful on your end.
Ati masterful.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. It was effortless.
For real?
Yeah,
Good vibes. Asante sana.
Thank you.